Greetings, everyone. There's some talk in chat today about account management, what to play and where based on where you're at with your Magic the Gathering arena. So I thought I would see what chat was talking about on that front and offer up any perspectives I can on how to approach when, where, and how to play on arena to maximize your value and your time. So Eagle says, the discussion stemmed from me wondering if I should spend money on my second account to 4x it if I'm going to spend money to draft anyway on my main account. Because it feels bad to have 100 packs on my main account that already is 4x, and I wish I could have those packs on my second account for standard play coin mining. So basically, you're a spender, and you're talking about whether you should spend on a couple of different accounts. I feel like, in general, I want to be spending... If you feel like you have a main account that is where your 4x really lives, I tend to just want to put money in there, but ultimately, like, if you're managing two accounts, are you out of resources? Like, if resources matter to you enough that you have two accounts and you're out of them, you could also add a third account. But also it sounds like you want to spend because you want to get your second account to 4x, or basically have a second deck on your second account. I don't know what's the point of your second account. I keep second accounts so that I can play free limited when I want to. And I suppose another side benefit of the second account, if you're a free-to-play player who is not flush, you don't have tens of thousands of gems, you're constantly up against your budget, then I could see wanting to have a second account, building on the second account, just because then you get like two places where you have a tier 1 deck. One of the benefits of free-to-play grinding on multiple accounts is that generally you can get each of those accounts to have something good in standard, and you can have a variety there. But if you're spending to play and your main account already has everything you want, and you don't think spending is going to get the resources for future stuff, I suppose you could do it on a second account. I haven't really thought that one through. To me, my gut says only spend in one place. But then again, at the end of the day, we're all just, whether spending or not, we're just producing resources with which we use to play Magic events. So it really doesn't matter as long as your main account is providing all the value you want from it, right? I guess that's my take on spending on a second account. If you're gonna pay to play anyway and you think there's more value in it for you to be building your second account, go ahead. But I generally think of my second accounts as incomplete side accounts that I'm unconcerned with. So Rob says, how do you grind gold on the secondary accounts? With limited, frankly. Like, I can show you my secondary account that right now, where basically, like, Mike 1976 has something like 10 different accounts he runs. You don't need to run that many, but the point is, with the way he does it, he only grinds for gold on playing limited. So if you start to juggle enough accounts, ostensibly you should be able to do your grinding with limited as well, but that gets awfully weighty. Yeah, Mike's crazy, right? Right? Like, I do not recommend managing 10 accounts unless that gives you some fundamental level of joy in and of itself that makes you happy, in which case more power to you. But I'm more of the one main account that is your everything account, and then a side account that you touch on every now and again when you want to get some free limited. That's how I approach it. And if for whatever reason I run out of access to limited on any of the accounts that I need to play, or like a good example is this account. Like, on the weekends, I have never played limited on my main Going Optimal account that wasn't being broadcast. I've broadcast every bit of limited I've played on this account. And to maintain that, it means that when I grind it for gold over the weekend, I play constructed. And my approach to constructed grinding for this account, let's see, if we look at standard, these are my two favorites right here. The mono red aggro, and I've just started calling this the broken 4/4 deck. I love this deck. Here, I'll get out of your way. It's not a tier 1 deck, and it's not like tearing up the tournament scene or anything, but it's pretty absurd. There's 25 ways to make a 1/1 on 1. 25 ways to make a 1-mana creature. Then you got Venerated Loxodon. So the whole point of this deck is just to power out creatures and Loxodon and formation them, and it's really fun and fast. You can have some turn 3s with this deck that are insane. Let's see. I'll do this. You want to see this one, I'll export it to my Stream Decker real quick. And you can make there's different things you can do. You can make some changes around, but mainly it's about powering out 1-mana creatures for the Loxodon. Upload new. Browse. Loxodon. And we'll call this Venerated Victory is your new name. So now it should show up as the active deck, and here's a direct link to it as well, if you like that one. But basically I like grinding with aggro decks if I'm just trying to get gold quickly, so I'll do the mono red aggro, but I also look at what my current quests are. If I've got a red 500 quest, I'll play the green white deck to avoid it. If I've got a green 500 quest, I'll play the red deck to avoid it, you know? Rob says, but how do you get the cards to play standard? I feel like I'm in an infinite circular logic maze. Well, okay, so beginning stages. I'm so flush I can just play a tier 1 standard deck, no problem. Rob's like, yeah, but how do you grind if you don't have a tier 1 deck? So if you're just starting out, you really need to be starting out grinding in the play queue. Standard rank pairs you based on your rank. Play queue actually pairs you based on, well, I don't know where they're at now, but the point of the play queue when I designed it when I was still on the team was to have a place where you actually the system actually looked at deck power a little bit. So because I recognize that problem, Rob, like it's really feels awful for somebody. But a secondary account is effectively like a low end account, right? There's no difference between grinding a second account and grinding for the relatively new player, right? So it's the same for either way. Grinding with a less stocked account. So grinding with a less stocked account, I really want to head towards building. I want to play in the play queue where you're going to be like, if you go in the play queue, you can even use precons or whatever, and it's going to match you somewhat on deck strength, not just rank. So you're not, if you go into the play queue, you won't necessarily face a bunch of, do I make an initial investment on the secondary account? I happen to have done so on this account. You don't have to, but the $5 welcome bundle is such a great value that, yes, if, you know, I would recommend for most of you that if you're taking the time to go ahead and make a second account, unless you're like really scraping the bottom of the barrel of your funds, go ahead and spend the $5 on the welcome, because then, Rob, you get that initial bump. It's a nice injection of resources for the account that you can use to both play limited so that you can grind your gold via limited initially, and so that you can build towards a real deck before the grinding begins. Yeah, so Eagle's like feeling that as well. And it depends on, you know, there's a certain way in which I like climbing up from the bottom, climbing up from a so-so collection and making it work. But really what you want to do on that account is work aggressively towards a mono red deck. And the reason why, even though there are some other cheap, low rare decks you can make, what I like about the mono red deck approach is how replaceable so many of the parts are. So like if we go Let's go and get an MTG Goldfish mono red deck, for example. In fact, let's switch to, I wonder what account. Actually, my paid account probably has the least amount of stuff on it. But if we look at a mono red aggro deck in standard right now and what it looks like, it's going to look like this. So let's go back to decks and import, just import the stock list. So if this were my second account and it was out of all the expensive stuff, like sometimes you're even on a new account, you don't even have the commons and uncommons. But let's look at the rares and mythics specifically here. Here I am talking about how cheap the mono red deck is, when look at this. It's like mostly rares and mythics. They're not even making the mono red decks cheap anymore at their tier 1 levels. However, the beautiful thing about the mono red deck is how replaceable the parts are. So nope, don't have 4 fervent champs, need 4 something else, right? So you can find 4 goblin bannerets. Is that as good as Fervent Champion? No. But you know what it is? It's a playable 1-drop red creature. And then, okay, Runaway Steamkin. It's another awesome, rare 2-drop, 2 good. Or then you say, okay, like maybe what we need to do is make the Cavalcade version. Because like the fully rared out red deck has too many rares and mythics. So let's focus on making this a Cavalcade build instead. And we reduce our rares and mythics and replace with 1 power commons and uncommons. Tin Street Dodger is fine for this. I'm going to put in Grim Initiate for now, but we can probably do better. Yeah, but let's look for Spitfire. So we want Chandra's Spitfire in this version. We want to cut Phoenix of the Ash, but like Torbrand is so good, let's keep 2 of those, right? And Embercleave is so good, let's keep 2 of those. And you can see where I'm heading though, right? The point is, even though a red deck is just chock full of really heavy rares and mythics at this point, red is the easiest to find replacement level stuff that you can bring in and make a completely different build that's a bargain. So yeah, right. And Rabbit Man, you got to start prioritizing what's the most important rares to craft. Mono red, Torbrand is insane in mono red. Embercleave is insane, and I think these are the 2 most important cards in mono red right now. But you can just start building the stuff that's most important from there. So yeah, green Stompy, but basically you can see what I mean. You can take your rares and mythics and downgrade them to uncommons and commons that are totally passable. Craft the handful that you really want as you acquire the rares and mythics for it, and then you get a good grind deck for your free-to-play account. So that's why I always start with making a red deck on my free-to-play accounts, because they tend to be pretty cheap to make viable replacement builds from them. But yes, also thanks to Eldraine, every color has a decent mono-colored approach that you can take like this. MTG asks how to even make a second account. You just sign up for one with a second email. They're free, so you can you just need to go through the sign up process using a second email account. I'm going to discard changes. I'm going to ditch this deck, kill it. So that's what I got for you on account management right now. And now let's go find something else to play with. But thanks for hearing some account management spiel, and we'll catch you next time, YouTube.